Morning, kiddos. The lesson that we're talking about today is that we can learn real-life lessons from the books that we read. So we're going to be doing session 7 today. So one of the things I want to discuss with you guys is that one of the things I love about reading is that you can learn things from books. We've talked about this before. And sometimes even rereading books. It's the reason why you might be going back to some of the same books that you have read before, because you want to reread them, because there's something about them that is so good, and most likely it's because of things that you're learning about life by reading those books. I belong to an adult book club, and a lot of times those readers in the book club will say, "Oh, I've read that book, but I'll read it again because it was so good." And usually those discussions about why those books are so good ranges around the themes, the things that we're learning from those books that they really enjoy. It's one of the reasons why I have read the Harry Potter books like multiple times, because there's themes in there that I just really are drawn to. The good versus evil, the idea about how power can corrupt people, and how love drives us to be better than we are now. It teaches us some good lessons about how to live, even though it's a fantastical story about a kid who's a wizard. So big life lessons come from great books. So today I want to remind you that fantasy stories might have fantastical plots, but they're also about themes and life lessons. Insightful readers mine those stories for lessons that might apply to their own lives. So readers, fantasy novels are incredibly helpful in teaching us how to read this way, to mine for themes and lessons. The trick of it is to let go of the fact that the plot is fantastical and ask yourself, well, what lessons do these characters learn or teach that can be important to my life? So in your book, or in the book that we read before school got out, and A Wrinkle in Time, I'm going to use that as an example today. And I want you to think about Meg, and what lesson might we be able to learn from Meg? What lesson can Meg teach us? Okay? What lesson does she learn? What lesson does she teach that can be important to our life? So, thinking about that, I came up with some examples. And some of these are from things that happened later on in the story. Because Meg was full of self-doubt. And like I said, in one of our earlier lessons, one of the things I struggle with a lot of times is doubting myself. So I can identify with Meg about that. But she overcomes her self-doubt, and she's actually able to rescue Charles Wallace in the end of the story, because she was able to overcome her doubt of herself. She was able to do it. She believed in herself enough to be able to rescue him. So this teaches me to believe in myself, that nothing is more important than the love for family, because it was the love for Charles Wallace that forced Meg to go back and believe in herself enough to overcome the black thing, the evil that had him captive. So what I want you guys to think about right now is the story, the fantasy story that you're reading. If you would write the title of that story right here. And then what are some themes and life lessons? What are some things that you're learning about the character that you're also learning about life through that character? If you would write some of those things down here, and then post a picture of what are some things that you're thinking about right there. Just think about, what is it that's most important to you? What about this story is really speaking to you? What is it that you're learning from this character? And those things you're learning about that character, how can it apply to your own life? Those are the things I want you to write down right there. And then for the other part of our lesson today, on this page, it says do some fast writing about how the book you're reading is influencing you. Think about, what are some things you are learning about this story? And just to give you an idea about some typical themes you might come across in fantasy stories. You might be learning about trust. Good versus evil. That's a typical theme. And just even overcoming obstacles. Those are just some typical themes that you might come across in some fantasy books. You can use those as an idea to jumpstart your writing, or anything else you might be thinking about. But tell me, what is it that you're learning from your characters, and how does it apply to your life? How is it influencing you? What's it making you think about your life? How can you apply, like if you're learning about trust, what does that teach you? How can you apply that in your life? Or, good versus evil. How does that help you in your own life? Maybe with making good choices, or, overcoming obstacles. There's some things that you might have in your life that are kind of trying for you. What is it that the character's doing that helps you understand, hey, I can do this too? Or just because this character had these obstacles, they were able to do this. Well, I might have these obstacles in my life, so I'm able to do this because of that, because I'm learning these things about perseverance and whatnot from the character I'm reading about in my story. Just some thoughts. I just want you guys to spend some time doing some writing. But what are those themes? What are you learning? How can you apply them to your life? If you would post both the picture of this and this page to your Seesaw so I can see what you're doing, and I will respond to your writing. Happy reading, everybody. Good luck.